talking about triggering you, the thing, as you said, I also triggered you today behind the camera, and we had a debate regarding ChatGPT, and as I see it, really a question about teaching and how to build human capital. And
I would never, I know you are in part an economist by training, but I am revolted. The whole of my innards enters into revolt against expressions like human capital.
Mm-hmm. So if you could
human
share,
beings.
excuse me, if you could share with our viewers why you lashed out against me, that I think could interest a lot of viewers.
When I'm able to, and that's a crucial caveat, when I'm able to, I teach. I've never taught on a steady basis. I never was tenured. I taught semester to semester. You get hired, you get fired, you have no say in the matter. You find out a week or two before they need you or they don't need you. But on the other hand, because I was not tenured, except for that terrible period from 2007, when I was denied tenure and I was effectively blacklisted, until about 2019. It was a very bleak period in my life. I taught off and on, but because I was an adjunct, I got the worst courses to teach, which were the ones with lots of students, which means lots of grading. And so I probably had more experience teaching than tenured professors. A tenured professor gets 2 courses one semester, 1 course, let's say at NYU, 2 courses one semester, 1 course the next semester, and then they get sabbatical every 3 years to do research. Their courses are, seriously, well, you'll know because you're at University of Chicago. You ask them, how many students in your class? 6, 8, 10? When I teach, it's a 30, 35, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 courses a semester. So I have a lot of teaching experience. Now, AI became a real challenge for me this semester. It became a challenge because in the past, first of all, it was fairly easy to detect plagiarism. It wasn't so frequent. It was a problem, but you would not call it epidemic. And secondly, there were ways to get around the problem. So if you have a very focused question for a paper, it would be hard to find a source that can fill in, so to speak, the blank of a 3 or 5 page paper. Now, however focused is the question, and you'll concur, I gave you examples of very focused questions. How would you answer, what would be the best response to the Solomon Islands submission to the International Court of Justice in the 1996 nuclear weapons case? And as I showed you on the screen, a full paper comes up if you enter that question in ChatGPT. A full paper written, the whole paper is written out. So it became a real challenge. And in order to rise to that challenge, there were 2 major obstacles. First of all, it's very time intensive. You have to sit down with a student and go through the paper line by line and say, what does that mean? Read the next sentence. What does that sentence mean? Read the next sentence. What does that reference mean? Read the next sentence. Because the students dig in their heels. They're very confident that they can jump through the hoops with AI, that they cannot be traced. So there's the labor intensity, and then there's another thing. It creates an enormous amount of animus between you and the student. I never, in 40 years of teaching, had such an acrimonious relationship with several students, not one, several, over this issue. I would persist, and they would persist. They dug in their heels. If I had not been the age I am, which is 71, if I were at the beginning of my career, I couldn't do it. Because when you're an adjunct, you are dependent on what are called the student evaluations. And if enough students start giving you zeros, which is their retaliation for the interrogation and ultimately humiliation that they had to suffer at my hands, I would suffer markedly, palpably in the student evaluations. Even now, I didn't like it. I knew I'm going to get a lot of zeros. On a scale of 1 to 10, how was the professor's class structured? 0. How was the professor's, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And I don't like that. It makes me feel bad. In any case, our differences come down to that expression you used, human capital. For you, this is all a kind of mechanical issue. Am I going to invest my time and energy in tracking down this misrepresentation of your work? Am I going to invest it? Or, I have more important things to do. The student cheated. Who the hell cares? Let's move on. And
just to add, so that you don't misrepresent me, I think it's not just because I think I have a lot of other things to do. I do think that real education, moving away from the framework of building human capital, real education in a more Chomskyan way or William van Humboldt's way, comes from this inner incentive, inspiration to look at things and read, as opposed to someone policing you and forcing you to do something.
Look. That's the ideal.
And you called me a bourgeois for having that.
That's an ideal. Of course it's the ideal. I have a wonderful student. I have many wonderful students. They compete with anyone at University of Chicago, and I think they will prevail. So I had one student, Lucan Sindara, still, I'll give his name, brilliant student. And I was talking to him about the dilemmas of AI. And his response struck me. He said to me, why would you want to use AI? It takes all the fun out of writing a paper. I like to display my knowledge. That's, the ego. I want to show how much I know. And I really admired that response. It was like an artist. Would an artist use AI? Of course not. An artist wants to create. They have that inner drive to create. They're not going to appropriate a song from AI. And they love the idea that they are putting on display for admiration their creative capacities. So that's the ideal. But for most people, a chasm separates the ideal from this is just grunt work that I need to do to get my degree and get my diploma. Get my diploma and get my degree. And I feel there's something about maintaining a standard. I tell the students, I say, don't do AI with me. It's not going to work. I have a reputation for tracking down work by people who didn't do the work they alleged to have done. But I say, I still have vivid recollections from college. I made errors. I did things I shouldn't have done to get grades I didn't deserve. So I say, I'm not going to pretend to holier than thou. You just rewrite the paper and no penalty. Just rewrite the paper. So I do everything I can to be fair, but I tell the students, I don't teach for money. I teach it because I believe in teaching. And I'm not going to pretend as if the work you submitted is yours. It's not. And I think Professor Chomsky, who took the teaching profession so seriously that it would terrify you. Chomskyan linguistics is not just an intellectual achievement or conquest, knowing nothing about the field. Nothing, zero. I would never dare ask him. I know the response would not have been positive, so I stayed away from it. It was not just an intellectual attainment, achievement, conquest. He created a field. Do you know what that means? Hundreds of graduate students around the world formed departments because they were his students. Do you know how many dissertations that means? He had to have read. In every country in the world, there's 1, 2, or 3, even at Brooklyn College, at City University, 2 of my friends now, John Nissenbaum, Sam Axt, I can pronounce his last name. Sam, he's Palestinian, John is Jewish, and they team together. They're both Chomsky students. I mean, literally, they were his students. He read their dissertations. Everywhere you go, Chomsky student, Chomsky student, Chomsky student. But not like a student of like, he's read a few books and is inspired. No, literally his student. On top of his 10,000 other achievements, Professor Chomsky created a field in the double sense, the intellectual breakthrough, but also the physical creating of departments by his students. So I don't think he would have accepted an AI paper. He would not.
Yeah, I don't think our differences were about whether we should accept an AI paper. It was about whether those students of Professor Chomsky became those students because A, they were at the MIT, and B, they were probably more inspired by Professor Chomsky.
Totally correct. You didn't have to face that problem. Mm-hmm. But now when you teach, there are large numbers of students who just want that degree. I don't fault them. And actually, in my opinion, that kind of utilitarian attitude can be overcome if you are stimulating enough in your teaching, if you care enough about reaching young minds, then however utilitarian their approach might be upon entering the classroom, you could get their minds to work. Their minds, I don't know how, in the era of iPhones and social media and institutionalized gossip, passing as intellectual labor. You told me about a particular commentator who reads 2,500 Twitter accounts a day. Twitter is just gossip. It's not an argument. It's not the composition of a thought worked out. It's a tweet is to thought as a belch is to a sonata. So despite all of that noise, the minds are still nimble. There were many classes. I came home and said, damn, those students are really good. And I'll send them a group email on what's called Blackboard saying, damn good class. Now, there were bad classes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I would blame myself. There were bad classes. But even with a utilitarian attitude, you can reach them. But sometimes, even if you reach them, the laziness sets in. I'll just go in AI. And I'll fight it.
I think the last point here, which might be of the viewer's interest on the utilitarian point, there's this categorical point that you described earlier, which says, I wouldn't use it because it's about displaying my knowledge, or it's
that's what Lukinson said.
Yeah, being more faithful about to myself more than anyone else.
I don't think it was faithful. He genuinely liked the joy of learning and discovering what he's capable of.
Yeah, so there's that very categorical sense of it. And then there's the utilitarian aspect, which...
Utilitarian, I don't blame. First of all, school's expensive. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I mean, in my day, school was free. City University was free. State University was free. Free. F-R-E-E. Secondly, no one, I'm telling you, no one except pre-meds, ever thought about work. Pre-med, you had to do the biochem, organic chem, inorganic chem. There was, in order to get medical school. So it began freshman year, okay? Anything else, we never thought about a job. Never. You know why?
There were jobs.
There were jobs. We always knew when we graduated, when we were ready to get a job, we would get a job. There was no thought to it. So, no tuition, no fear of a job. Parents never asked you what you were majoring in. My parents, the last day, if you ask, what did Norman major in? I have no idea. They didn't care. Why should they care? This was like summer camp, but it was free. 4 years, no cost, and he'll find a job. No worry. No worries. He'll find a job. Young people now, astronomical tuition, no jobs. Unless they can find an exact fit between their major and the job they want later. You know, that's why the major is now completely insane. Mm-hmm. Completely insane. I've never seen majors. What are you majoring in? Graphic design. Graphic design is actually one of the more substantive majors. Absolutely crazy majors. Because college has turned into a vocational school. Mm-hmm. It's not college anymore. College meant what we called back then a liberal arts education.
Now it is about the job market.
Now it's just the job market. It's vocational school. So I don't blame them when they're utilitarian. Mm-hmm. I get where that's coming from. But even with that, I do believe you can reach students. You can still reach them if you care enough about your subject matter. You can reach them. At least a good 90%. There will be some hopeless, I know that. Mm-hmm. But a good 90%. And you can have a lively, intellectually curious class.
There was this moment where you called me surrendering, I'm paraphrasing, but surrendering mental faculties to the will of the machine. And I called you a Luddite. And the example I gave you that I would use AI to get my useless language grant application written, but I would never use AI to write my thesis or my paper. For you, both are no.
Look,
just your thoughts.
Your mind is, in my opinion, Your mind is incrementally taken over, and you've got to exercise maximum discipline to prevent your mind from being appropriated. I know I'm going to tell you something which you're going to think this guy is completely nuts. If I'm writing an email, I write October, Octber, and I meant October, okay? And the spell check immediately kicks in to make it October, right? I won't use it.
We had that experience today when I said that this is AI, don't worry about spelling, it understands. And you said, I know, but I care for it.
Yes, I will never let the machine take over me spelling. I will not. Because I know, Trotsky once said, Leon Trotsky, the Russian revolutionist, he says, human beings are intrinsically lazy. And he said, that's a good thing. That's what forces them to innovate, technologically grow, and so forth, because they don't want to work.
They want to get rid of that.
Yeah, they don't want to do the grunt work. So he said it's a good thing. I don't really agree with that. I think that it becomes very seductive to have the machine replace this, and have the machine replace that, and have the machine replace this and that. And before you know it, the machine is replacing your mind. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to let that happen. To my grave, I will keep correcting my spelling on my own. I'm glad it's alerting me that I made an error, but I will correct it myself.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have 2 requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.